Welcome to the Tech Savvy Professor podcast, which features two faculty, hey, that's me and Eric, who love tech and love making it part of their work. I'm Marty Gensius, a co-coordinator of the master's program at Kent State University.
And I'm Eric Perry, program director at Divine Mercy University School of Counseling.
So what's been going on? I mean, I'm just catching up. You have, before the show, you told me the absolutely insane schedule you've got coming up in the next couple of weeks. But you've also been traveling a lot and doing some things with the kids, and that sounds all exciting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of running. So I'm going to the beach next week. The week after, we have our residency. School starts on the 20th here, so we've been preparing for that. And homecoming dress shopping. Wasn't aware of this, but apparently you need to homecoming dress shop earlier and earlier now because all the girls register their dresses so that nobody wears the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. So my daughter's just going into 9th this year, so this will be her first homecoming. And they went last weekend to do that, which was, I don't know, new experience.
I'm glad I'm a parent of adult children at this point in my life. I was reading something, maybe it was in the Washington Post or the New York Times, where it was a story about a person whose job is to coach young women who want to join sororities. It's basically, these are the do's and don'ts that you need to do in order to be able to rush certain sororities. And I thought, my day, people just rushed, and they dealt with the rejection, whatever way they wanted to deal with the rejection. But in modern days, I guess you have to have a coach to get in because it's a competitive field to get into the club.
It's new to me. Yeah. My undergraduate days are long behind me, but
this could be your future. This could be your future, seeking out a coach for Rush. Wow.
Just adding to my angst.
It is the first week of classes. Well, it's not the first week of classes. It's the week before the first week of classes. And usually they're chock full of meetings for me. And either I got the announcements and I was like, I'm not going to go to that one. I did put the one on for the whole college, where we're going to learn about all the things that we need to not say and what we can say or can't say in our syllabus according to the new regime. So that's on my schedule for this week, but I'm hard pressed to find other meetings, although I know there should be. So maybe I'll find that out post hoc, in which case I'll just watch the Teams video of the meeting or get a summary of it, because most meetings turn out to be face-to-face emails. And so classes actually start next Monday for me and for the whole university. So I've got a class next Monday night, and then again on Wednesday, I teach another class. And program coordinate. So I'm starting to get the trickle in of students' emails who either didn't do something during the summer or wanted me to do something during the summer that I didn't do, or are now in a panic. I don't know how I'm going to survive unless I get a third class, because that changes my life plan completely. So yeah, that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what my week will be.
All the beginning of the term. Yeah. Yeah. I'll be thinking about you.
If I were you and I was, you were me, I wouldn't be thinking about you. I would be enjoying the beach.
Fair point. That's just something nice you say.
I'm glad pleasantries still cross between us. Today's topic, however, is let's figure out how we're going to keep track of all of our stuff. And most important, our digital stuff. And most important, how are we going to organize it and save it in a safe way? So basically, it's managing your backup methods. And we've talked about backup probably in previous shows, but being the beginning of the semester for many folks, we thought it would be a good opportunity for us to talk about it again and kind of set up a strategy that you might want to consider to make sure that all your files are safe. From the beginning, I think it's interesting because you are PC guy and I am a Mac guy, and I think there are two different frameworks for backup and what you have to do. For me, it's all integrated into the system. And as long as I put files in certain places, it will be in other places when I go on to another machine. And if the machine I'm on breaks, well, it's still going to show up at the other place. So I still do a pattern of backup. And I don't know, I've been far enough away from the PC world that I don't know what systems they have for backup. So you can kind of educate me on that process. Simple rule is for a backup plan, everything that you wish to keep, you should have 3 copies on 2 different types of storage and 1 offsite. So, and 1 kept offsite. So I work a lot at home. So if I'm going to do backups, I'm going to put my offsite storage on a drive in my office, because if my house burns down, I've lost most of my data. If the university burns down, I still have my data. And so it's always good to store one of the 3 options offsite. So 3 copies, 2 different types of storage, and 1 offsite. Does that play your way too?
Yeah, I mean, I have traditionally not been great at this part. And I think part of it's just been switching between kind of the Microsoft and Google spaces a little bit, depending on where I was working and what was being used. The one thing I have done, I think, a little bit better is my personal stuff. So work stuff is kind of a separate thing, but personal stuff, I generally keep a hard drive in a firebox. Most of that contains like important documents, pictures, like pictures and video files, projects that I've worked on. So I think I've done a little bit better with that. The offsite thing, not so much, because I've kept it in the firebox. But I have a reminder set on my computer for every 6 months to go back in and update the SSD. Probably should be more often than that, but I have some cloud stuff set up that, I've become a little bit more confident over time in using less physical space on the SSDs. So, I think it makes a lot of sense to have the 2 types of storage with 1 offsite. I'm just going to have to work on the offsite part.
So offsite, well, I guess cloud would count for offsite, wouldn't it?
I would think, yeah. But it makes sense, too, to not have something physically just stored here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the firebox isn't indestructible, and I don't know what would happen to an SSD under that much heat anyway. So, it makes sense to probably have something stored elsewhere, particularly for the pictures and types of things, or maybe the things that I don't back up in the cloud.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm running into, because I'm doing so much media right now, with the podcasts and the video casts like this one and the other ones that I do, that I am accumulating a lot of large data files. And, I work on the large data file, edit it down, and then wind up putting it, on as a podcast somewhere or as a video stream or video cast on YouTube. So I'm doing both platforms for whatever media that I create. And I keep wanting to save all the origin files, the raw files and things like that. And I'm thinking, why? It's already stored basically in the cloud on these other services, that if I ever want them, I'll just download all of the podcasts that I've done and I've got them. But it's run into some problems for me because physical storage that I use here gets filled up really quickly. And looking at expanding that storage is extremely costly right now. And now's not a good time for things to be costly. Let's just put it that way. So besides the simple backup plan of 3-2-1, we have some things in the show notes that you might want to take a look at. Show notes can be found on the notes in the video stream or also the podcast under the podcast notes. And one of those is a step-by-step, a 7-step method for making sure that you've got good backups. And some of this resonated with me. I'm not going to read through all of it because I think we've got more stuff to talk about. But, the idea of figuring out how you're going to organize your files in terms of creating folders and figuring out how those are going to be managed. And then encryption is an important part. I never used FileVault on Mac, which is a large encryption service, because most of the stuff I transfer is transferred over encrypted based systems. I'm not doing anything with student files, so none of it is being stored on my computer at home. I'm always accessing it remotely and getting information that I need for that purpose. But I'm not really storing anything that would be, FERPA issues with that would be on any of the computers that I have. But I never turned on encryption because when I first started using it, it just took so long to set up, and it noticeably slowed down the computer that I was working on.
Mm-hmm.
And with the podcast group that I hang out with, I mentioned that one time, and they were like appalled that I wasn't using FileVault, and I explained why, and they were like, "That's changed a lot. You need to go ahead and use it now. It's really quite fast. It works quite well. Don't worry about it." But they understood where my complaints came about and why I kind of got off that FileVault train in terms of the process. Have you used BitLocker?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Right. It's been a while. I think most of what I've bounced between has been OneDrive and Google One.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that I bounced through the most. I did, for a short period of time, use iDrive, which I think now may have a different name. But there's so many services out there for cloud storage now. iDrive was pretty simple to use. I think they were offering some kind of like deal, and I needed somewhere to throw stuff. So I think I used that for about a year. Looks like it's still iDrive.
Yeah, it's still
That's
iDrive.
good.
They used to send you an actual drive. That was part of the deal. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And then I found that I had problems with the physical problems with those drives, and kind of was into iDrive for at least a couple of those drives, and then got off that train because the physical drive was faulting or was not, I couldn't access it with updated OS. So it didn't work so well on the Mac side.
Yeah, and I think now, for a while, it's become more expensive, but SSDs really weren't that expensive. You know what I mean? There was enough competition out there that you could find a decent SSD after a while. But cloud storage wise, I think that the biggest, you can compare your storage sizes and subscription amounts that you get for those, your encryption, and I think just ease of use. Right? Because there's definitely differences between, how you're going to use it and whether or not it has enough utility for you. Some of them are really user friendly and some of them are really niche. There's lots of services out there for just storing files, video files and pictures that might be great options for you if that's all you're doing. But if you're looking at storing different types of data, organizing, I think there's a lot of different options out there. It's almost cheaper, like you said, to invest most of your time in a cloud service as opposed to an SSD, just because of the price now. I mean, you're going to spend so much less. I have one. It's probably 4 years old, a 1 terabyte hard drive that I keep like the important things on that I need to make sure that I keep a copy of.
Yeah. For listeners, again, you can find the step-by-step, the 7-step process, but we drifted away from that, because you can read it and you can get some ideas about what that step process means for you. The suggestion that you try to do it in a particular rhythm where you do daily backup in a Cloud Sync folder, a weekly backup if you want to plug a drive in and pull copies of that stuff off. And then quarterly, you should do a test to make sure the files are still viable. I wind up probably doing my backups, and my full backups are done right around at the end of the semester, because everything that I've done for the semester is pretty much in there. The classes that I've taught are all encapsulated into that particular backup. And I'm using physical backup, and I'm also using cloud storage. So I use iCloud and have a huge iCloud account, a 2 terabyte iCloud account. And that's not where the media goes. The media generally goes on hard drive. And so the large, we're talking 2.5 gig videos. I am storing on an external hard drive for backup. I had them in my Synology, which Synology for listeners is like your own little network storage device. So it's actually plugged into the internet. It has its own network IP address. It's not a server, but people see it as a server. It's a file server, I guess, if you want to call it that. And you can, wherever you are, access those files as long as the Synology is turned on and plugged into the internet. And I just don't like to leave a lot of devices running in my office, in my office here at home, because it seems like chews up a lot of electricity. There's a lot of heat in this room, just stuff I don't want to get into. And so it's never served well for me to be a storage device that I access from afar to get things. The only time I really turn it on is when I'm at a conference and I'm afraid I didn't take all the files with me, and I know that I can get them off the server. But that's even less of a problem now that I have everything cloud copied from whatever I'm working on. So yeah, quarterly or at the end of the semester, everything goes off on an external drive or Synology. My Synology is full, and it's like a 6 terabyte rad striped. So I have duplications between the two drives that I have in it. And the only thing I can do is expand it to a 4 drive. And that's about $1,000 worth of investment. And I'm not sure I'm ready to do that for a network device that I'm not using as a network device. So think of the weekly ways or how you're going to do your backup. I don't know if there's anything else to say.
Well, I like the note of being really mindful of where and how you store things. So, how you're going to label things, what your file system looks like. Something that I started doing, I actually did this a few years ago. When I do the backup, they called it a backup map here, but like I write down where I store things. So, I have a Word document that just lists where stuff is because I know me. Not thinking about it 3-6 months from now, I'm not going to remember where I saved it. So if it's not real clear under the naming convention, it's usually on that list.
Doesn't search solve that problem for you though?
When I think I know how I'm going to label things, sure.
Well, I mean, just for particular content, like you could have it search for any word combinations that you know is part of the document. It would pull it up maybe with another 20 document. Yeah.
Just as an example, right? I've had this conversation with our admissions lately. What they call a seated student or a student that's ready to be seated for a class is different than what I would call a seated student. So I would count that student after add drop. That's a student who we've retained who's in a class. They call them seated after all their paperwork is done. So like there's things that terminology wise I may lose or have lost because there's just differences in how I would think about that particular topic.
Yeah.
And that happens with shared documents a lot too. I'll be looking for a shared file for something that somebody else created, and why would they name it this? I called it this. I mean, sometimes it's really good to have that reference, at least for myself, especially for those things that might get lost in translation, so to speak. But sometimes the search will help, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, let's talk about, and I've got website links, and for folks who are watching the video, you'll be able to see some of this. But I have links to various services that are considered important, and we will also have some of this information in the show notes if I can fit it all in the show notes. That's the problem because I have character limits with YouTube and also with the service that I use for hosting the podcast. So we talked about OneDrive, and it's still out there. It's still available. And it has a pricing structure of $295 a month for the first year, and it's 5 terabyte. And that would be good. That would be really good. Again, for me, it's ease of access. And you and I both have used OneDrive in the past. Have you tried Backblaze?
I haven't, but it came up a couple of times. as an option. So this one they limit you by terabytes. So the storage you pay based on how much you're using as opposed to just kind of a flat rate for a certain amount, which I think works better for some people. So I think there was a couple of different options for how you do this. If you did like a monthly pricing, if you're using the cloud for just backup or you're using it for B2 cloud storage. So the computer backup is $100 a year, and business backup's $100 a year, but they also had like tiered plans for the amount of data you would need.
I'm looking at it now on the website. It says unlimited data backup with it on Backblaze. So
yeah, the B2 cloud storage is by terabyte.
Okay.
The stuff that you're going to use that probably most people are going to use is the unlimited. The unlimited kind of made me giggle. I would be interested to see if unlimited meant unlimited, because that
you want to see? It's like going to an all-you-can-eat place. Do they really mean all you can eat?
Yeah. Am I gonna
you off?
Sir, we're gonna serve dinner now. It's time to.
Yeah, it's like an open bar at a wedding. How much can you really drink?
Right.
In terms of that, Carbonite. Have you had any experience with Carbonite?
I've not, but again, it's another one that comes up pretty regularly in searches. So when I was looking through this, I went to ChatGPT and then I just kind of mulled around and seen it in a couple of other places to see what seemed to pop up. And Carbonite was another one that popped up quite a few times. It's supposed to be one of the easiest to use if you really just want to figure out how to save your files. Really intuitive, I guess, user interface. Not that expensive. I think there's 2-tiered plans, about $5 and $7 a month, depending on what your tier would be. Yeah, so there's a couple there. And depending on what you would pay for, there's different features. There's also a premium or prime tier. It's about $12 a month, I think, when it's not on sale.
I've used Carbonite in the past and did not have any trouble with it. For some reason, I can't remember why I dropped it. It might have been, I know I'm currently using Backblaze, so I made the switch to Backblaze because that's what all the cool kids were using, and the folks that I have in the podcast tech network. We're all talking about Backblaze. And so I tried it. It's fine. Great. Haven't had any trouble with it. Reminds me when I haven't done a backup in a while, but it automatically sits there and does this. And this is something about both like Backblaze and Carbonite, those types of services. When you first install them, if you I have a computer with 1 terabyte hard drive on it, I'm running probably around 400 gigabytes on it of software and documents. Technically, you don't have to, it does you no good to save all of the programs that you have running because you can reload those programs if the hard drive crashes. Unless you're doing something like a clone copy to a new computer, that stuff doesn't come in very handy. So you can select to manage only your documents, which saves you some time. But the first setup that you do it takes a long time. It'll take like a week to 2 weeks because it's slowly making copies of all the files on your system up into the cloud, and it's running in the background. So it can feel like, when am I going to actually have a completed backup service? I just paid for it and I started it, and it's, I'm 10 days into it and it's not quite done yet. But then, you're working all along and adding new files in, and those new files then add to the mountain of files that you're trying to save. So you have to get really patient with these if you're going to do them. But once they're all caught up, you don't even know they're running. They are doing the backups on you for the new files or any new content for you running in the background. And it's really quite cool. pCloud. Have you used pCloud?
I have not, but this one was a recommendation. I actually know somebody who does use it and paid for a lifetime plan on pCloud. So there are different types of plans you can do: a monthly, annual, and a lifetime. So lifetime, as it suggests, is forever. And I thought that was interesting because I don't
$100.
right? For 10 terabytes for life. And I had to think about this a little bit because of how data storage has changed over the last 20 years or so, and who knows if 10 terabytes really is going to be the thing you're going to need for the rest of your life. But I thought it was interesting. It's used a lot. I have a friend who's a photographer, uses pCloud for media storage. That's kind of where their branding is from. But he also paid for that lifetime premium, I think 2 terabyte, and seems to really like it. This was one that came up again within my searches too.
Just a couple of quick ones. Sync.com is another service that had come up in your search, and you get 5 gigabytes free. And then Crash Plan, which I have used at one point. I can't remember when or why, but I have used Crash Plan or have been at least exposed to it. But let's talk about the big guys. Google One is a large storage piece, and also OneDrive. I have both. Let me put it that way. I use Google One, and I paid for an increase in Google One to go up to 2 terabytes, maybe. And I'm probably using half a terabyte now in terms of storage. The thing that I find difficult with Google and Google Drive, well, it's Google Drive and Google Docs. Google Docs does not play well with any other document than a Google Doc, a Google Doc.
Got it.
OneDrive storage is good for pretty much anything that you want to throw up it. Throw up on it. You don't want to throw up on your storage.
Yeah.
Throw at it. Okay. And so I use that for sort of additional backup from anything else I have. iCloud is the one that I use. It's not on our list. It's probably familiar to a lot of folks who are Mac users. And the wonderful thing for me with iCloud is you can store any documents that you want from your Mac to iCloud, and it's then accessible through other documents. It's accessible through other computers. And even if you're on a PC computer at work, you can go to your iCloud drive and pull that stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with OneDrive the same way I struggle with OneNote. It just seems like a weird interface for me to be able to do stuff. And unfortunately, I have like 3 Microsoft accounts. I have my university account and I have 2 other Microsoft accounts. And as soon as I set this computer up and said I want to put OneDrive on it, it immediately made virtual folders for both of those, or all 3 of them. So now I have these 3 virtual folders that show up all the time, and I can't do anything with them. Thank you, Microsoft. But OneCloud for me works in a lot of ways, particularly anything you can set it so you can choose which folders that you want across devices. In particular, most common thing is desktop. So my desktop looks the same on whatever computer I'm using, because it all syncs up. That also means all the documents that are on my desktop show up on my other computers too. So my desktop folders, some of them become real storage devices for me in terms of current work that I'm doing. That's how my setup is. Most of it is being saved through OneCloud via desktop storage, which is what I have linked between all the computers that I use.
Yeah, I've started over the last year and a half or so getting a little bit more used to Google and being in that space after spending a lot of time working primarily in the Microsoft side. Microsoft has control issues, right? Like anything that you kind of use, and OneDrive is a really good example of this. It feels like it inserts itself. It doesn't feel like a really clean interface. It wants to be, in your files, in your face, kind of asking you things, wanting you to do things. It just seems a lot less intuitive. I think for somebody starting out, if you really are, you want to look for a simpler solution and you're comfortable with Google, it's a pretty easy kind of back and forth. Utility wise, both of them are decent. But again, what I pick for myself and what I have to use for work is different. Like you said, sometimes you get stuck in one or the other.
Yeah, I have a Google Drive that's provided to me from the university under my university email account.
Hmm.
I think they're gonna end that though. I I I don't know. It's one of those meetings I didn't go to. But I don't put anything on that drive. I'm not going to put like my PowerPoints on it for storage. I'm not going to put anything on a university owned system that is what I consider proprietary in terms of my work.
Hmm.
Call it my own paranoia, but frankly, they pay me to do some things, but the content that I create for classes, I think I need to have control of it and not because it's sitting on my OneDrive account that they can have control of it. So I do
Right.
some other things like all of the stuff that I have in Canvas is basically the files, the videos are pointed to my server or the server that I've purchased. I purchased an online website. I can use it as a file server. And
Mhm.
so when I leave this plane or I resign from the university or retire, I guess would be a better term for it. All I got to do is clip all those links
Mhm.
and they don't exist for anybody who has access to my syllabi or prepared materials that I have at the university. So my backup consists of backblaze, which I don't think about. It's just there. And it backs up everything that's on my computers or computer. And it's in the cloud, so it's not a physical storage. I also use my Synology, which I have to figure out how to deal with now because it's run out of space. So what I'm doing is buying SSDs, buying 2 terabyte SSDs. So now all the media for podcasts are going on SSDs instead of on Synology. I could be sending it up to Google and using my OneDrive or using my Google Drive, Google One for that purpose, but it's going on SSDs. As far as my desktop and my active work, I have a folder on my desktop that's synced to iCloud. The whole desktop is synced to iCloud. And I have folders on them that include my class materials for this semester with subfolders for each class. So as I produce materials or copy materials over from previous semesters to use, it goes into the current class's folder and I have access to it that way. I also have work materials. So the stuff I do as program coordinator, I have my own coordinator folder. I also have a separate work folder that's not coordinator related, and I've got subfolders for that by topic. I also do some work with associations. So on my desktop, you will find an association folder with subfolders by various associations. And then I also have a dissertation folder, which it has subfolders by students. So as I'm getting content from them that I have to review, it goes into their folder in my dissertation folder. And again, all of these follow me wherever I go. So that's
Mhm.
kind of my system of using the cloud to make sure it's there. If someone steals my iPad, I still have it on my desktop. I'm not going to lose it in any other way. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I've really switched to the Google ecosystem primarily for storage and backup. I do have Samsung 2 terabyte hard drives that I've used. One of them was a gift, and one of them I bought. I think I have one of them nearly full, but they serve as kind of my backups for kind of the important things, my physical copies. I keep a lot of what I have, I think, on the cloud. I think a lot of my teaching content ends up, you know, I'm not as careful with it as I should be, I guess. A lot of it I do have kind of spread between YouTube in the LMS systems that we use, and then my more creative kind of stuff, lectures and interactive presentations and those types of things. I've kept those pretty well off the server, so to speak.
do you point
But
to it?
yeah, yeah.
You have
Mhm.
pointers to to where
Mhm.
the information is. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
More
so I do a good bit with Captivate, or have in the past. So I have a couple of modules that I've created and still use, that I have those kind of set up. But I haven't had as much time in administration to do as much creativity, too much creative stuff as I have in the past.
Yeah, my classes, like I currently have my summer class folder still on it. And I'll take what I need from the summer class folder and move that stuff into the fall class folder. And I won't, I'll leave a copy in the summer. I'll just copy over what I need. And then that summer class folder will be sent to probably multiple places for it to be stored. So then, like I teach a course in the summer that's taught once a year. So if I need to get to that folder or get to that place, I can then search for it on either the iCloud Drive where I have it stored, or Google One where I have it stored, or SSDs if I store it on SSDs. But it will get off my desktop for that purpose, and I only focus on the desktop stuff that I need. I do some weird folder naming. So my folder has folder naming, the files that I want right up in the top, right upper hand corner, because all of my folders on my desktop are alphabetized. I do underline or underscore before the name, and that pushes them to the top of the list in terms of alphabetize them. So, excuse me, my program coordination folder has got a couple of underscores. My fall classes have a couple of underscores. My work folder and my hold folder has a couple of underscores. So are there any other idiosyncratic things that you do around your file storage?
No, and honestly, I should do a better job. This whole conversation has made me think I'm going to schedule a day to kind of reevaluate what I'm doing and where I'm spending money and storing things. So I think it's time for me to reevaluate my own process.
Yeah, my only suggestion at this point for faculty who are thinking about creating a backup strategy is think about the 3-2-1 strategy and then think about what's going to get stored, what's important for you to have stored, and what's not important for you to have stored in terms of it, and create one that will work for you. For me on the Mac system, since everything is replicated from desktop to desktop, the desktop point is the place that works really well for me. And it means that the files are always available that I want to work on are right there on the desktop for me to work on it. When they're not, they get moved someplace else in archive or in storage. I actually have a folder called archive. That's my 6-month backup of everything. And so I'll put a date on the archive, and that'll tell me if I want to go back to last year, this is where I'll find this is where I should find that file. So think of a system that organizes and works for the way in which you think. So you can email us at the podtalknetwork@gmail.com. That's our email address for all the shows with the Podtalk Network. And you can find out about what those other shows are by going to the website, thepodtalk.net. Look for us on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, and all podcast servers. Of course, you can find us on YouTube. You watch the live event. You can watch the video stream of the show by going to youtube.com/@TechSavvyProfessor. And that will get you to our channel that will have the videos available for you to take a look at if you want to see our remarkable faces and some of the websites that we talk about. That's pretty unedited, so you're going to get like raw footage. I'm not going to clean up all the ums and ahs in it, but still you can watch us on YouTube. Occasionally we put out shorts for folks to catch up when they see us on YouTube. Our bumper music is from Philip Gross, Rast, from the Free Music Archive, and everything you need to know is at thepodtalk.net. Look for our other shows like Circular Firing Squad and a show that I'm currently doing on spatial computing called Vision Profiles. That's it for this episode. Thanks for subscribing to the Tech Savvy Professor.